Let's finish this stupid video. I can't. As a wise woman once said, I can't deal with this. But I'm going to try to finish this stupid video. Joe Biden answers burning questions of our young people, and now this exclusive. And he just finished talking with Dylan Mulvaney, which I am still holding out hope. I've said it for the millionth time. I still think it's a troll. There's no way that anybody can actually believe this and think it's real. So it's got to be a troll, right? We're going to look back in a couple years and we're going to be like, wow, that was crazy. That's what I think. But let's finish this stupid video. All right, hang on 1 second here. All right, let's play.
Things are changing, but it's a matter of us acknowledging that there's nothing to be, just because it's different, there's nothing to be fearful about.
Thank you for your questions, Dylan, and for using your platform to empower others. Mr. President, we're now going to
For using your platform to empower others. It makes no sense. It's just word salad.
go into abortion access.
So you see how they put those things back to back? So the transgender issue right next to the abortion thing, it's like those two things are mutually exclusive no matter how you slice it, right? Do you think that a trans man is going to be given birth? Do you think that a trans woman is going to be giving birth? No. For lack of a better term, no. But they want to play these things that are biologically, scientifically, and not even that, it's just common sense. They are opposed to each other, and they want to pretend like it's both real. And yeah, this all makes sense. And of course, I'm sure eventually they're going to get to the climate catastrophe, fear mongering. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
The overturning of Roe versus Wade has many concern that millions of people's health and overall well-being is now at risk. I'd like for you to meet Dr.
Well, what about all the babies that will not be torn limb from limb? What about them? You don't want to talk about them?
Danielle Mathieson. The SCOTUS decision not only impacted her career, but also her personal life.
Oh, yeah.
This is her story.
My name is Dr. Danielle.
And just why couldn't they just tell their story? If it's really their story and it's authentic, you should just be able to spit it out. But they have to do these, fully produced little PowerPoint, TikTok, reel presentations because it's all fake.
Mathieson, and I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. As an OB-GYN, my job is to help women in every medical aspect of their lives.
I'm from Texas, and I'm not for this, right? I live in this conservative state, and it's so scary. This is nonsense.
However, my schooling in Texas prevented me from receiving the proper training and education in family planning counseling or procedures due to the state's negative stance on the topic.
What?
Now, medical students studying under these restrictions will have to resort to filling in these gaps on their own. My colleagues and I needed to create an off-campus after-hours club that allowed us to study the curriculum that wasn't offered to us. There's already a shortage of OB-GYNs, and with the recent overturning of Roe v. Wade, thousands of people will not have access to the necessary care they need because there will be even fewer trained medical professionals where they live.
What?
An innumerable number of lives will be at stake. Everybody deserves access to healthcare.
Of course, everybody deserves access to healthcare, fine, whatever, but killing your baby is not healthcare. And like I always say, every single thing with these people is life and death. If you don't allow us to do this, you're going to die. If you don't do this, you're going to die. If you don't wear this, if you don't get this, you're going to die. Everybody's going to die if you don't obey every single thing we do, because that's the last resort. That's all they have. None of it makes sense. You can't just, put these arguments up, you just state your argument, state your claim, make your part, make your piece, state your piece, whatever. You can't just explain it and then say, all right, well, that's my argument. Like, come on, who's with me? No, it's like, if you don't do this, you're going to die, because that's the only thing is just scare tactics, fear mongering, because otherwise none of it makes sense.
Hi, sir. Thank you so much for having me and for speaking about a topic that is so polarizing, and doing so publicly truly means a lot to the OB-GYN community and anybody who's affected by abortion care. So thank you for having me. You announced earlier that the first piece of legislation you'll send to Congress after the midterm elections will be a bill codifying Roe.
Why can they not just state their questions? It's so rehearsed. Well, it's actually not rehearsed. That's why they're reading off the note cards, but it's all fake for the millionth time.
What is your plan to protect abortion rights over the next 2 years if Democrats aren't able to increase the majority in Congress?
Well, first of all, It's the first time the Supreme Court has, in fact, made a lot of decisions. It's the first time they have not only not proclaimed a constitutional right, but
Yeah,
one that they
stimulants are wearing
acknowledge
off.
existed, taken away. And it goes beyond potentially the right to choose. What I have done is by executive order what I'm able, I don't know the votes, but by executive order what I've been able to do so far. And that is, for example, making sure that a woman seeking to choose getting health care across the state line that permits abortion.
He's literally like a woman seeking health care. You can't just now they're not now he's completely even dropped the term reproductive, which was a euphemism in itself. But now he's saying, oh, just seeking health care. She has to go across state lines to get health care. It's just not real.
That, in fact, from one that doesn't, like Texas to another state, that they are able to do that. They can't be held accountable for crossing the line. Making sure that you cannot, making sure that women who are being
What's a
looked
woman? You
at
can't even
as
tell us
to
what a woman
whether
is.
they might seek an abortion, that they're not able to be followed on their accounts so that they can know where they're going. Making sure that there's access to a number of items that accommodate availability of OGBYN help for the health of the mother.
Hold on, run it back. He said he said it wrong. Oh, now I'm saying it wrong. You've confused me, Joe. And she confused me because I'm so used to it I'm so used to hearing it being said as OBGYN, and she said OB-GYN, and he said OG-BEN or whatever. He said something different. Run it back.
Access to a number of items that accommodate availability of OGBYN help for the health of the mother in the states that still permit choice. Making sure that there's access to a number of items that accommodate availability of OGBYN help for the health of the mother in the states that
whatever,
still
same different,
permit
81 million.
choice under Roe. And so there's a lot of things I can do by executive order. But when I said, and when you heard me say that the first bill I will send, if you give me the votes, I need a couple more senators and I need to maintain the House. The House will vote, the House of Representatives will vote to codify Roe v. Wade. Because, you know, senators have on the Republican side made it clear the first thing they want to do, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, wants to federally pass a law that they'd expect the president to sign that would, in fact, outlaw the right to choose, and in most cases, no matter whether it's incest, as the pregnancy consequence of incest, or rape, or any criminal act.
So predictable.
And he wants to codify that so that you can't have these choice in any state.
Okay, just for the last time, I promise. Those two things are one and the same. You let me know, send me a DM, leave me a comment, message me on Instagram when you find a consensuous relationship. Those are the same thing. They use that tiny little wedge to pretend that it's happening everywhere, and if you don't let us do this, then it's going to keep happening. But, as I always say, for the million trillionth time, if you say, all right, in those cases, you can get this procedure done, no problem, if you promise not to do it outside of those cases, and they would never do it because they are always and forever will be completely dishonest.
I think if I have a few more votes, I'm going to be able to do that and get the Democratic Congress to pass this, and I will sign it. But if we don't do that and the Republicans succeed in blocking abortion in every state by passing a federal ban on it, then I'm going to veto it. It's not going to happen as long as I'm president.
He's going to rule by decree, he's going to rule by executive order, and press conferences.
Duly noted, sir. I really appreciate that support. Pregnancy itself can be a very dangerous and life-threatening condition, and there are countless ways a pregnant person can experience these. But in a state like where I'm from, doctors are often asked to wait for their legal counsel.
So here we have it. where the transgender and the abortion collide. Pregnant person. It's absolutely insane. Does this woman really believe that men can get pregnant? And does the 80-year-old, empty suit president also believe that men could get pregnant? And that's why they're saying pregnant people? No way. They're just telling you that we control you. And if you don't believe all the outlandish things we say, we're going to make your life miserable.
To allow them to perform life-saving abortions, even in the case of medical emergency, stripping that decision away from the medical professionals and putting it into the hand of lawyers. So my question for you is, apart from codifying Roe, is there more that can be done to protect our ability as providers to have the final say in what we think is best for our patients?
Are you going to override everything and let us kill the babies?
Pass an executive order saying that you can't do that, where the health of the mother is in question. Whether, for example, some pregnancies are not able to be terminated where the parent wants to keep the child. It is too dangerous to go and ends up with a miscarriage. And so what we have to do is just make the case to the American people, and I don't think look, the Supreme Court ruling said, and I'm paraphrasing the line in the court saying that because this is a state issue, not federally guaranteed, women can vote. Facetiously, women can vote. Let's see. Well, guess what? I'm counting on you voting in big numbers, like happened in Kansas. Kansas overwhelmingly turned out a very conservative state saying, no, we're not going along with that law that bans abortion and bans it under any circumstance. The other thing that worries me.
What?
Two things. One you said and one you didn't say. Bro? He turned out a very conservative state saying, no, we're not going along with that law that bans abortion and bans it under any circumstance. The other thing that worries me.
What?
Two things. One you said and one you didn't say. How many universities around the country are like the university? Did you go to West Texas, or did you go to? What was the university?
I went to a university in Dallas.
Okay, I won't mention it then. But how many have that same rule where they don't teach you OGBYN about the health and safety relative to pregnancy?
Dallas.
Okay, I won't mention it then. But how many have that same rule where they don't teach you OGBYN about the health and safety relative to pregnancy?
Pretty much across the board, whether it's a private or public institution, just out of fear that that's somehow aiding and abetting achieving an abortion.
I didn't realize that was the case. I'm going to check it out in most states.
He didn't realize that. Dude, you don't even know what you're talking about. Of course you didn't know that was the case. You don't know anything. This is...
And because it's very worrisome. It's an example of what the Dobbs decision is doing. The Dobbs decision is putting an incredible amount of pressure on doctors to not take and make judgments that really do affect the health of the mother, unrelated to whether or not it's really related to.
She's nodding along like it all makes sense, and he can't even say OGBYN, OBGYN, OGBYN, OBG. He can't say it right. Now I can't say it right. And she's nodding along, even though that's her field. That's the medical practice that she's in. She's not going to correct him, and she's going to nod along like it all makes sense. Despicable.
Abortion. For example, the case of a 14-year-old girl trying to get access to medicine relating to rheumatoid arthritis.
Yes.
And she goes, and for years has been getting it, her mom buying it, go to the counter. Drugstore said, I can't sell it to you because they're worried they'll be sued.
What?
They're worried they'll be sued. There's a lot of unintended consequences as well to this Dobbs decision. And so I admire the heck out of you for being...
Yeah. The unintended consequences are that Planned Parenthood is going to take a little hit to their profit margin. That's the unintended consequence for this weirdo, creepy establishment.
Willing to get together with other students and teach yourself. I mean, I'm curious, how'd you do that?
A papaya is a very good representation of a uterus, and you can practice on the papaya fruit.
But who was teaching practice?
An outside physician, not a part of our institution would come in and teach us.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
God
she's
love you.
wonderful.
It's another political ad.
Teeth started to fall out and like stuff started to decay and like it was bad. Like
On a more personal note, I had to travel about 600 miles and leave my family behind and spend thousands of dollars to get abortion care for my own very wanted and very loved pregnancy. In the wake of Roe, some companies are offering funding and services for trips like this. Would you support a federal fund for individuals like myself who need to take time off
Yeah, of course,
work,
I'll give you more money.
obtain
Yeah,
child
absolutely.
care?
Yeah.
The answer is absolutely.
Yeah,
but
of course.
guess what?
Baby killing money. Why not?
We need
Yeah,
the same
obviously.
votes we need to overrule to reinstate the decision that was struck down by the court.
So she just asked him if he's going to give out money so women who have to travel from one state to another to get rid of their baby can have it paid for by the state. And of course he says yes. And she also said that she had to travel 600 miles and pay thousands of dollars to get rid of her very wanted pregnancy. That doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. Hold on, I gotta go back. I gotta go back one more time. This is insane. Hold on.
I had to travel about 600 miles and leave my family behind and spend thousands of dollars to get abortion care for my own very wanted and very loved pregnancy.
What?
In the wake of Roe, some companies are offering funding and services for trips like this. Would you support a federal fund for individuals like myself who need to take time off work, obtain child
Absolutely.
care?
The answer is absolutely. But
Okay, so she says that she had to travel 600 miles and pay thousands of dollars to get rid of a wanted pregnancy, as I understand it. And certain companies are paying women that have to travel across state lines to get rid of their baby. And now she wants to know if the federal government will pay her if she has to once again travel across state lines to get rid of another baby that she said she wanted. This doesn't make any sense. And Joe Biden says absolutely. So of course we're going to cut you another check. We're going to print out more money or more ones and zeros or whatever it is to make sure that we can pay you to cross state lines to get rid of your baby so that Planned Parenthood can collect the cash, I guess.
guess what? We need the same votes we need to overrule to reinstate the decision that was struck down by
He
the
doesn't know
court.
what he's talking about.
I mean, I do support that, and
Yeah, I'll give you more money. You need to get rid of your baby. Yeah,
Yeah,
here's all the money you need.
I've urged them publicly as President of the United States, saying, this is what you should be doing. I urge you to do it. Because there's so many, and imagine the women who need that kind of assistance but have no money at all.
Yeah, of course they don't have enough money. We're gonna give them more money so they can kill their kid. This is insane. This is insane. I don't know if this might be worse than the Transformer segment.
Be able to do this. None. What do? They don't have the option. Our success relative to the rest of the world in terms of the number of mothers who die in pregnancy
It's always life and death.
is so high, especially among the poor in our country. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's very disproportionately affected based on your socioeconomic status, and I appreciate you highlighting that fact,
This
sir.
is pathetic.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to turn our focus now to the criminal legal reform. The United States is the world's leader in incarceration with over 2 million people in prisons and jails, which comes at a huge cost. John Adrian, JJ Velasquez, is here to discuss the challenges with the criminal legal system and opportunities for change.
My name is John Adrian Velasquez. Most people call me JJ. When I was 22 years old, I was misidentified, arrested, and charged with a murder, even though I was on the opposite side of New York City at the time of the crime.
Oh, yeah.
For 23 years, 7 months, and 8 days, I was incarcerated for a crime I did not commit. For decades, I worked relentlessly to prove my innocence behind bars. I missed seeing my children grow up because the system believed I was guilty.
Does this guy who was apparently wrongly accused or falsely jailed or whatever, does he really, for one split second, think that Joe Biden is going to help? Give me a break.
On August 17th, 2021, I was granted clemency, and a month later, I was able to walk out of prison. I don't plan on wasting the time that I have in this new life I was given. I'm using my story and my experiences to help with reforming the criminal legal system. There are others like me behind bars waiting for someone to give them a chance, and I want to be that chance.
It's also insane how much time and money and effort went into producing this incredibly, falsified little, production or theater or whatever this is, this town hall.
JJ, your questions for the president.
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Biden. Obviously, being wrongfully convicted is one of America's worst nightmares. It certainly was for me for almost 24 years.
People of color.
Yet this is only one of the major flaws in our broken legal system. Fortunately for me, I was able to be released through executive clemency. And it was based on huge community support and the work that I was doing in the development of Voices from Within, which is a movement that we created to help incarcerated people redefine.
At least he's not reading off the card. He seems to at least memorized his spiel here.
Find what it means to pay a debt to society. Essentially, clemency is an act of grace that is often rewarded, or actually not often rewarded, to people who demonstrate extraordinary change in their personal development. And they also are able to prove that they are ready to become assets to their community upon their return to society. My question is,
get to it.
How can we create clear, uniform standards for clemency so that incarcerated people are motivated to change and know what they need to accomplish to show that they're ready to return to their families and communities?
All right, so I will give him credit there. I thought he was going to jump right into the race thing, and he didn't. He's got plenty of time in this little segment, so he might still do it, but he didn't do it up front and center, so I guess a fraction of a percentage point of credit for at least not taking that low-hanging fruit, but this is all still completely phony.
First of all, on behalf of all society, I apologize for it. 23 years. My God. I got stopped when I was a young senator trying to see Nelson Mandela in South Africa.
Oh, here we go.
Afterwards, he heard when he got released, he heard and he came to see me in Washington. And he walked up to me and said, "Thank you." And I looked at him, I said, "How can you not hate?" He was then president of the country. "How can you not hate?" He said, the most incredible thing to me, he said, the jailers were just doing their job, just doing what they were paid to do.
Like things that never happened for 1,200,
"Good luck,
Alex."
Nelson." I can imagine you not having such... Anyway, I just... I
read the note cards, bro. What are you doing?
Thank you.
Number one. Number two, I know you can't set a standard for clemency. You can't write a law saying, under these circumstances, the chief executive has the authority to grant clemency like the governor did for you, or that I've just done for everyone who's ever been convicted of the possession of marijuana and or smoking marijuana. I can only do it in the federal prisons, for example. So I've changed the lives of thousands of people because you know as well as I do, unless you're able to achieve the status you've achieved, even after you're released, what do you do? You still go around with this stigma. In many cases, you can't apply for housing, you can't get rid of it, you can't so on. And so what I've done, and I've had the Justice Department and the Department of Labor do, is go in and take a look at while someone's in prison. For example, did you have access to education in prison?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Every single prison, many prisons don't have any access.
You're absolutely correct.
Every single one should have access to teaching a trade and or educating or getting a degree. And when you are released from prison after serving your time, even those people are totally guilty. Right now, they're in the past they've been given $25 and a bus ticket. They end up under the same bridge that caused them to be arrested in the first place. So anybody, this is what we're doing federally. Anybody who has committed a crime should have access to education in prison.
Remember when Joe Biden said that drunk driving wasn't a felony or wasn't a crime? He said something silly like that. It's like, yeah, we're just gonna let all the criminals out. We're gonna let the weed smokers out, which is not real. But drunk driving is not even real. I don't even care. Of course, like Nancy Pelosi's husband does it. Hunter does it all the time, and he smokes crack, so it's fine. Whatever. Moving on. Crime isn't even real.
In prison. If they're in there for a drug offense, they should have drug treatment, and that should not be, if that's the only crime, it should be mandatory drug treatment, not prison. We should also be in a situation where anyone who is released from prison has access to Pell Grants, to education, to public housing, to all the things that are out there that are available to everybody else. Because what's the thing we want to do? Give people a second chance. And you're providing society with a second chance. It's not like because you didn't do anything in the first place. Mm-hmm. But the point is, it should be written into the law, which we're doing in the Justice Department as well as the Department of Labor, that people have access to education, access to opportunity, and access to everything that's available for any other citizen, if you've done your time. And otherwise, and I point out to people who come after me for saying that, is I say, look, what do you want? You want a safer community?
This is brutal.
Or do you want to release someone who already was in there because they had a bad background and environment and they probably didn't have this access? We want to condemn them for the rest of their lives?
I need to get the dislike counter revealer or whatever. There's some like Chrome extension where you can see the actual dislikes, because again, as of whatever 8:30 or whatever time it is right now, this has 919 likes. We don't know how many dislikes, with 53,000 views. So how many dislikes does this actually have? And again, I can't stress enough that this is exactly why this type of video, this weird propaganda theater, is exactly why they hid the dislike counter, I should say.
Make sure that society is damaged as a consequence. So it not only makes sense for the individual being released from prison, it makes sense for society. And lastly, I don't think for most nonviolent crimes there should be long prison sentences. I don't think it should be a circumstance where you're denied the...
Is that right, Joe? What about the 1994 crime bill? Do you remember that? What about Kamala? You going to ask Kamala what she thinks about jailing people? Does anybody want to talk about that?
Opportunity to make up for, and so probation should be a much broader application for nonviolent crimes in most cases. There's some nonviolent crimes that are horrendous. But so the whole idea is, how do we reduce violence and crime in America, and at the same time do it in a way that is also fair to giving people a second chance?
All right, another political ad coming up. Oh, no, it's not a political ad. It's an NBA ad. All right, looking for more. Fades, fires.
You asking me that question?
Yeah, sure. That's what I've done. But tell me what you think. I mean, what do you think we should be doing?
I think that you're on to something, but I feel for you because of the politics that you have to deal with and the platitudes that you get from either other Democrats or Republicans. The reality is higher education is a very qualified tool to help bring down recidivism, which is the act of reoffending and coming back to jail, which means that somebody else is going to get hurt in society when these people are released. The system is not really designed. I'm talking about from lived experience. An innocent person who went into prison, the system is not designed to rehabilitate. And what I've learned from my time in prison is that there are a lot of good people who made bad choices when they were too young to really understand the scope of what life consists of, right? And over time,
rambling.
I'm talking about what I've seen generally for 10 years. When a person does at least 10 years, there is a drastic change in that individual. Yet parole, yet judges, prosecutors, and anybody else involved in the process of a person being released, because parole commissions reach out to prosecutors to get letters, they're boilerplate letters that are denying individuals their release, their opportunity
this
to
is
return
just
home without even
rambling
having
words
an
out. They're not
opportunity
even
to
talking
see
about anything.
what kind of changes did this individual make. The reality is, beyond just higher education, there needs to be more positive programs both in prison and outside of prison.
More
and
positive
you're right,
programs, yeah.
people have to be able
That
to
was deep.
secure employment and housing. Because the sad reality is the majority of individuals who are released into society can actually get their hands on a gun or some drugs before they can secure employment or housing. So until we start to look at this differently
What's happening?
and do a strategic reinvestment and
be a
reallocate
word
some of the
salad
funding
battle.
that's being used to punish these individuals, we're really not getting anywhere. Our recidivism rates indicate that the United States has been failing for decades because people are coming home worse than they went in. And a lot of the programs that individuals are supposed to get in order to become better
And then we're gonna
citizens
get
upon
another
their
2 minutes of
return,
Joe Biden
they're
word
getting
salad
in their
in
last
return,
2 years.
and nothing will have gotten
Individuals that may have a situation of addiction, that should be addressed the minute you come through the door.
Absolutely.
You, in New York State, you are not eligible for that program until you are within 2 years of your release. So if I have a 25-year to life bid, my addiction is not being addressed until 23 years. And throughout that time, if I was to get high, I would be punished. Sometimes we need to really look at this whole thing, and the reason why I'm here is not really to ask you questions, it's to offer you my support. It's to tell you that I have experience and I know people who have a lot of experience, and we're willing to share that experience with you so that you can save this country.
Everything you just said, I've already done federally. Federally. Everything. And here's the deal.
And here's the
One of
deal.
the things,
Not a joke.
one of the reasons I'm against capital punishment is, you know, we have confirmed there's at least 195 cases since 1972 that the person who was convicted and about to be put to death was innocent. Flat innocent, never committed the crime. Like in your case, you never committed the crime. DNA is helping change some of that. There's some changes that are coming forward that make it easier. But everybody should be in prison should be able to graduate with a trade.
What?
If they be able to come out with an associate degree, be able to, when they come out, everyone the person who was convicted and about to be put to death was innocent. Flat innocent, never committed the crime. Like in your case, you never committed the crime. DNA is helping change some of that. There's some changes that are coming forward that make it easier. But everybody should be in prison should be able to graduate with.
Everybody should be in prison, and prison should be able to have graduate what?
A trade. If they be able to come out with an associate degree, be able to, when they come out, everyone in prison who's there for a major drug offense, they're addicted, they should be in mandatory drug treatment in prison.
Absolutely.
Mandatory in prison. And so what we're trying to do is change the dynamic of what makes society overall safer and what's more fair for the people who have been convicted rightly or wrongly. What's the wisest thing to do? And that's why the things you're talking to me about, and we have time, I can go through them, but we've done the vast majority of those by executive order.
Of course,
the federal
executive
prison
order and
system.
press conferences.
I can't do
press
it in the
releases.
state prison system.
That's it.
What I'm doing in the state prison system is offering, encouragement by providing federal assistance if they would do these things. But the idea that there is no access to anything other than to sit in a cell or walk the yard and not have anything to do and not better yourself intellectually or mentally.
I look, I've never been to prison, so I don't know, but I feel like I see movies and TV shows all the time where they read books and they have classes and they have comedy shows and barbershops and all sorts of things in prison. So I don't know what they're talking about. I cannot confirm or deny, but they're trying to make it seem like there's never been an education system in prison. I don't think that's true, but I don't know, and I don't want to find out.
Is a big mistake.
You're absolutely right. In fact, correctional institutions right now
They're going back and forth doing this weird circle joke. Oh, you're right. I'm here to support you. This is nonsense. It's like, oh, look, we got Cory Booker's little, weird twin here. Is weird. I would say evil twin, but Cory Booker's already evil. Cory Booker's like weird butt buddy here who's going to come here and tell you how much he supports you, and he's going to give you all these ideas how to fix prison. And then Joe Biden's going to say, oh, yeah, you're right. I already did. This is... I don't know any other way to describe this other than just absolutely despicable.
For the most part, the standard is it's just a place for you to waste your time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, bro. If you live in New York, then you don't have to go to jail anymore. He's mad that jail wastes your time. Yeah, well, you got to maybe stop committing those crimes. And of course, he says he's innocent. He didn't do it. I don't know. Debatable. I haven't looked into that. But I do know that none of these people can be trusted. You can't trust any of them as far as you can throw them. And this has probably been true for decades, at least for Joe Biden. He's probably never been trustworthy since his first year in the Senate. But obviously, after the Rona hysteria and all the gun grabbing in the past 2 years, you cannot trust any of these people. The medical tyranny, this political establishment, this fake news media, none of them can be trusted. So obviously, homeboy here with the bald head is not going to be, oh yeah, well, of course, he didn't do anything. He spent 23 years in prison and he wouldn't hurt a fly. I don't know if I buy that.
I have spent decades trying to get individuals to realize that we have to take it upon ourselves to invest in that time so that we can have a better return on our own investment and come home and be the assets that society needs.
Yeah, okay.
JJ, Mr. President, we do have to move on into our final topic, but thank you so much for that conversation.
Thank you.
We're going to talk afterwards here.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. President, onto our final topic now, climate and the environment. Younger generations are hoping for a more livable.
All of these things have been completely fake. What was the first one here? Sandy Hook, gun violence, economic disaster. Okay, that was real, but they of course framed it in this weird way. Like, I'm just gonna give you more money for college, everything's free, which is of course not gonna fix the problem. And then of course the trans issues, then the abortion, and then the crime where this guy got to rambling. He's the only one that at least seemed a tiny bit authentic, like he was maybe coming off the top. Of course, it was all word salad nonsense, and nothing's ever going to get solved. And Joe Biden's talking about, yeah, well, I'll talk to you later. Yeah, okay, whatever. At least he didn't read the entire thing off of a card, which is perhaps why he rambled on for a little bit too long. Moving on.
Future, but uncertain of what that looks like without more aggressive action. Mari Copney is here today. She's been fighting for environmental justice since she was 8. This is her story.
She's been fighting for environmental justice since she was 8. Give me a break. Who put her up to that?
My name is Mari Copney. Most people know me as Little Miss Flint, even though I'm not so little anymore. At 8 years old, I became an activist when my city was faced with one of the worst water crises in American history, and none of the adults in charge seemed to be fixing it.
Who was president then?
Hey everybody, Freedom Fight Night 3 is coming back to Phoenix, Arizona.
My entire community, including thousands of children, were exposed to toxic drinking water, and 8.5 years later, Flint is still not fixed. Even worse, water crises plague hundreds of cities across America. At 15 years old, I should be focusing on school, cheerleading, and just being a normal
He's got
kid.
a lot of face piercings.
Instead, I've spent over half of my life fighting for the most basic human right, access to clean, safe drinking water. That is why I continue to advocate for those who are facing environmental crises.
Good to see you again, kiddo.
It's good to see you.
I met you in Flint when you were 8.
Wait a minute. So is this about global warming, climate change, catastrophe, or is this about water? I guess they're going to tie it in together. And of course, like I mentioned, Joe Biden was vice president when they first discovered this Flint, Michigan water crisis. So he had the chance to help with it once. I don't know what Donald Trump was doing. And now he's going to pretend to fix it again, I'm assuming.
8 years old.
I can't vote yet, but my generation is going to be impacted by the climate crisis.
She can't even vote. They brought her up on this Flint water crisis, and now they're going to switch it to climate crisis. And she, of course, is not going to look away from the card at all because she's the youngest one, and she doesn't know what's going on. She has to stick to the script. We see it with Greta and all these weirdo little, little child pawns that they use. They can't go off script at all.
crisis more than any other generation before us. What message do you have for the people who vote without the youth or greater good in mind?
Yeah, I'm sure she came up with that question.
The message I sent was I was able to pass $360 billion, to make sure that
I get more money, little girl. I signed blank checks, little girl. Come on, man. More money.
we start to deal with climate crisis. And in the infrastructure bill, it's confusing. In the bill we passed for $1.2 trillion,
Look at her. She's pretending she knows what's going on. She doesn't know what's going on.
to fix our infrastructure. We're going to make sure that every single lead pipe in America is out. Good. We're going to pay to have a new one put in all those hundreds of thousands of homes. And what happened with you guys was your city decided in Flint, instead of taking the water from the lake into the treatment plant, they took it from the Flint River, which was polluted. It was polluted. And that then corroded the pipes and everything went to the devil from that point on. And by the way, all of those pipes are gone except you have 16% left in your state, and we're paying to make sure every single solitary lead pipe is done. No child should have to turn on the water in a fountain in the school and or at home and worry about whether or not they're ingesting lead. And there are even more chemicals that are more dangerous than that, those forever chemicals. And they're in things like the foam used to clean runways and the like. And what we're doing is changing that as well. They're not going to be able to use those chemicals. And we have to have different chemicals that are going to be able to do the same job. And so the biggest thing is, though, that we have to change those things that affect the environment. Because if we don't get it straight by 2050, if we go 1.5 degrees higher in temperature, we're going to be out of luck. There's nothing we can do to change.
How many times have we heard that? Oh, we have 12 years. Oh, we have 8 years. Oh, it was going to be a new ice age. Oh, the ice caps are going to melt and the water level is going to rise. We've heard this for decades since I was a kid. It's all fake, and they're still pushing it to scare little kids like this.
What's going on? For example, Russia, just one example.
What?
They're in 8 time zones. And all that permafrost around the Arctic Circle in that area. Guess what? The permafrost is melting. It will never freeze again. You know what's coming out? Yeah, methane, which is 4 times as dangerous as CO2. Look what's happening not only in Flint, but cities all across America. All across America in terms of clean water. And the sewer systems that are getting damaged to fix them, the sewer treatment facilities that are being damaged have to be replaced. They're technology that's 40, 50, 60 years old. Not much has been done, but it costs billions of dollars to do it. So that's why it was necessary to pass legislation in both bills that probably total of $500 billion to be spent now to make sure your generation doesn't go through more Flints. And so they're the things. There's much more to talk about, but because of people like you, young people like you, insisting this change take place, if you weren't out there hollering, I wouldn't be able to get any of this passed because people are listening. And by the way, I talked about the young.
You set them up to do this, not you personally, but like your handlers, your establishment. None of the. Are we really to believe that this little girl is out there on her own at 8 years old? Yeah, I'm sure that she had to deal with the water crisis, but even at her age now, she doesn't know what's going on. She didn't know what was going on then, and you're just rambling on, oh, we're gonna pass legislation, $1 billion. Hey, man, shut up, bro. This is insane.
Vote to begin with. It's not, you're a very young vote, and you're way ahead of your time. You're kind of a progeny, that many.
A progeny? You mean a prodigy, bro? What is happening?
But all kidding aside.
She's not even 18. She can't vote, but she's got like a gum piercing or something. What?
The greatest concern and the greatest help that I get for my environmental stands are from young people because you get it. You get what's happening. So there's a lot
No,
we
she
can do.
doesn't. You don't get
And
it.
by the way,
It's all made
we
up.
should be cleaning up the Great Lakes overall. Great Lakes are the single greatest source of water in the world as one source. Seriously, did you know that? More fresh water, drinking water in the Great Lakes than anywhere in the world. And we rely
Fact checkers
heavily on
weigh
it.
in. I don't know.
But we're everything from, for example, the fuel used in those boats that transfer material up and down the Great Lakes. Well, guess what? They're polluting the lakes. Not all of them, but they're pollutants. For example, the cement that we make now to lay down the cement, you can change that and reduce the environment, reduce the harm on the environment, because making that cement causes a significant pollution of the air. And so we're changing the way we make cement, the way we make steel. We can make steel better now without having the negative impacts on the environmental impacts by the way we make the steel. So, and what we're trying to do.
Look at this. They do not know what's happening. They're all just paid actors, or I don't know if they're getting paid. I don't know what's happening if now this paid them or the Biden admin or whatever, but like they're all sitting here. This woman here in the middle, when he couldn't even, say, oh, now I'm going to sound like a moron because I don't remember, because Joe Biden screwed it up. OGBYN, OBGYN, OBGYN, whatever. Joe Biden butchered it. Now I'm butchering it. She didn't even confront him on this. She was talking about how hard it was to be a brown girl and go to college and support her whole family. And Joe Biden said, yeah, we're just going to print more money. Oh, yeah. And this girl in the middle said, are you going to give me more money if I have to travel over state lines again to get rid of another baby because I have no self-control? That's what happened. And then this little girl here, this teenager who admitted she wasn't even old enough to vote, but has enough, face piercings that she, I guess, is going to pretend that she's going to be voting in the next cycle. Whatever. She's super young. She was an activist back when the Flint water crisis first happened. None of them I guarantee you, without those little note cards and without being coached into what to say, none of this would be happening. They have no ideas. They have no thoughts of their own. They're complete establishment shill bots. They don't know what's happening.
Is once we get that done, I'm sorry, I feel the way we get this done is it's not sufficient that just the United States takes care of this. We have to help other countries take care of it as well, because it affects it's one atmosphere. It all goes into one atmosphere. And so what we're doing as well is we're rewarding farmers, for example, to plant crops that absorb carbon from the air, that absorb it, that suck it out of the air. For example, the Amazon down in Brazil and other parts of South America, that absorbs what they call a great carbon sink. It absorbs more carbon and pollution out of the atmosphere than is emitted by every single bit of negative thing we do in America on a daily basis. And so, but guess what? We cut down all our forests. We did all these things to be economically viable. Now they're coming along saying, how about us? How about us? So we have to, the industrialized world has to not only clean up our act.
I'm just trying to get through this word salad. There's only a couple minutes left. I'm trying to finish up.
We've got to help these countries do what they need to do without further hurting the environment. And we have to pay them, in my view. We have to compensate them for what they're doing.
Of course, we need to launder more money. Why not? That's always the answer.
And so there's a whole lot of things that we're doing. Last thing, I'll give you an example. All the electricity that's in here is transmitted over, there's a power station that either burns coal or natural gas or oil in order to generate the energy, and it goes up on those big high tension wires and transmitted to wherever it needs to go. Well, guess what? Because of the research we did starting in the administration, the last one I served in, the Obama administration, the last one didn't do much, didn't do anything actually. What happened was
don't forget
that we made sure that we invested in how you can make solar cheaper and make sure that wind energy is a lot cheaper. And so, but what happened was I found out that people, even though we were able to do it much cheaper than a coal, putting coal in the fireplace to generate the energy, to generate the electricity, it's a lot cheaper now to use wind and solar than it is to use oil or coal. But what happened was you got to be able to make sure you transmit it over those lines to get it places. But no one, not in my neighborhood, no one wants a new high tension stand going up in their neighborhood. Or they don't want windmills that they can see. And President Trump was wrong. Windmills don't cause cancer. But here, I'll give you an example.
Orange Man Bad.
We're
headed out. It's almost over. Orange Man Bad. Don't forget.
Ohio. And they have an experimental place that's federal. You know, the blade of a windmill, you know, there's 3 blades in a windmill. They now make them 104 yards long, longer than a football field. Longer than a football. And they generate enormous power. Enormous power. So what I've done is I've said you can't dig an oil well in certain parts off our shores in the Atlantic or in the Gulf, but you can put up these windmills. And I was up in New England where the last major coal-fired plant, they use coal to generate electricity. And guess what? They want to go to wind or to solar energy, and they want to do it. But what we're doing is, okay, we're going to transfer what you're doing here, and you're going to use wind or solar, and we're going to use the same high-tension wires to transmit the...
Look at them. They're all just looking at him like, they know. They know. Nobody really believes this stuff. Everybody knows, and it's all just a game. We all just have to pretend. That's what's happening here. All of these people on this panel, this host guy, they all know that this is completely phony and fake, but they're just pretending. They're just holding on. It's the same thing with the Transformers. It's all of this. Everybody really knows. But that's the key, right? Is that you have to go against your instincts. And if you are strong enough to go against your instincts and just fall in line, then you have proven your worth to the establishment.
The energy. And so we're going to be able to clean the environment significantly. And one last thing, battery technology. One of the things you're not going to be driving a gas-powered automobile. You're going to be driving a automobile that is an electric automobile.
Okay, so he just told this little girl that she's not going to be able to drive a gas car, right? So, again, what's happening in California? Oh, you have to drive a gas car by 2035, but also our power grid can't really handle it, so we're going to put up more windmills, and that's going to save the day. It's all absolute nonsense. They all know that, but they have to just go along with it because somebody behind the curtain has convinced them or has paid them or whatever the case may be. And he's literally telling this girl that you're not going to be able, not that you're not going to be able to, but he's implying that she's going to voluntarily not drive a gas car because that's just how it's going to be in the future, right? I thought we were supposed to be in flying cars by now. When I was a kid, I thought this was going to be the Jetsons. It's 2022, and there's people in Colorado or wherever. Was it in Denver, I believe, somewhere where they got tricked into not being able to turn on their AC in the middle of the summer because of the power grid. And of course, what's happening in California, the power grid is all out of whack. And that's been going on for decades as well. The rolling blackouts and that corrupt Gray Davis, all of those California politicians are absolute scumbags. Well, all of these, establishment politicians are absolute scumbags. But the fact that he's just implying here that, of course, you're going to drive an electric vehicle is just off base. And again, you might as well just say, oh, yeah, you're going to drive a flying car. It's all nonsense. It's fake. We're not there yet.
And that's because
you're going to drive a 3D printed car that, that runs on, it runs on water. It's going to be a hydro car that comes out of a printer. It's all fake.
We had in the backyard out here of the White House, we had all the 3 manufacturers come, the 3 major American manufacturers. And they all committed they're going to go electric by 2035. That's going to reduce exponentially the impact on the environment. So there's a lot of progress being made because folks like you hollered when you were 8 years old, and now you're 29, I know, but I'm joking. But now you're getting up there. But this is what we're going to do, and it's exciting.
Yeah, we're going to make changes because, your family and somebody from this corrupt establishment put you up to this when you were 8. And now it's all going to, we're going to make changes. It's nonsense.
And the last thing I'll say is it's going to generate enormous economic growth.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Remember, you won't remember, kiddo. Well, you may. You're so informed. But when I was running, they said, why isn't Biden talking about his green plan now? This is in the beginning. Because I wanted to make sure every labor union supported me because they were all opposed to it. Until I sat down and talked with the IBEW, the electric union, the Brotherhood of Electric Workers. And I pointed out their future lies in going electric. So, for example, we're going to make sure that, we have gas stations on the interstates now. Well, guess what? There's going to be electric recharging stations. We're going to have 500,000 of them. Yeah, okay. I mean, 55,000 of them are going to be put in. And now, I'm sorry, I get too excited.
It's okay. I do want to make sure that she gets her second question in.
Oh, let's do your second question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Countless.
Yeah, make sure she gets her second question in that somebody has written for her. She doesn't know what's happening. This is, this is just the most incredibly manipulative thing I've seen. And again, I'm not surprised by it. I don't let it surprise me anymore. But it's just like, how did we get this far, right? Like, they're constantly trying to make it seem as though the sane people who aren't on board with 95% of this stuff are the crazy ones, while they're in there dancing around. It's like, dude, you guys are nuts. Like, what is going on in here? And they're looking at you like, why are you looking at us like we're crazy? It's really, whatever, the emperor has no clothes, or I don't know. Allegory of the caveman, I don't know.
Communities in America dealing with toxic drinking water.
She can't even look up from the card, she can't memorize a couple words at a time and look up from the card. That's how out of touch she is with what she's actually supposed to be doing, or with what she's actually doing. And she's just literally just sticking to the script, going word for word with what she's been fed. She can't even look up for a second. And the guy, the host interjects and says, I want to make sure she gets her second question in, which of course was, written by somebody on the Now This staff. Safe drinking water.
Government solutions can take several years, if not decades, to implement, even though lead exposure leads to long-term irreversible damage, especially to children under 5. That's why I helped to develop my filter that provides immediate relief to those families dealing
it's an ad for her product. Okay.
with toxic water. What can be done to support short-term, immediate solutions for the millions of Americans dealing with toxic drinking water?
Oh.
With one of the best savings rates in America, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than this.
Capital One.
Stop. You're in.
Oh, cool. Yep, even easier
I'm
than
not
that.
going to spring
What's
for the
in your
premium.
wallet?
You can forget about that.
Two things. One, if it's immediate, you mean that we find out tomorrow that there's this problem, we have to provide bottled water. That's a start. Not because you can't fix these pipes that go all the way back to the water station and go to toxic rivers, etc., immediately. But as I said, out in Flint, all but 17% of all those, just since I've been in all those lead pipes, they're out. They're gone now. But you have 17% left. Now, granted, it's not 100%, but we're working diligently to get them all done.
Yeah, okay.
Not only across America, we're providing billions of dollars to do this.
Yeah, billions of dollars. We're spending more money.
Not just the state, but to the locality. So, for example, Flint would get the money directly to be able to get this done. They don't have to wait. Well, you got a great governor who's pushing this really hard. Anyway, there are certain things that
I'm surprised we didn't get one little bit about Rona in here. We didn't want to talk about that, the mask, or how it's damaging kids, or how the shot is working so beautifully and perfect. We didn't get any of that in this whole hour of nonsense.
take time to change, and because it's the physical requirement of having to dig things up and put something new down. In the meantime, whatever is needed to assure that the water in your school or your home is clean, if you can't make sure that it is clean by getting the pipe changed immediately, you got to provide the water. You got to provide bottled water.
Thank you so much, Mari, for your questions and for advocating for a better future. Now, before we wrap up, I would like to take this moment to thank all our 6 guests for being here, your questions, and for continuing these conversations on your platforms. And thank you, Mr. President, for welcoming us into the White House and taking the time to have the conversation around these issues that are top of mind for many young voters. Any final words?
Every issue you've raised here is of enormous consequence.
Everything is life and death.
As I said, this is the United States of America. If we don't lead in every one of these areas, every one of them, we're not going to be what the rest of the world expects of us.
Oh, yeah.
As much as it sounds...
No kidding, right? Yeah, you and this weird establishment, whoever's controlling you, that is the exact reason why we're not what the world expects us to be. That's why we're not what we as Americans are, what we should be, is because you and this corrupt establishment that is taken over by force.
Sounds sort of bragging about America. The rest of the world looks to us. We have the largest economy in the world. We're the most diverse population and a democracy in the world. And it's critical that we are able to do what we need to do, not only to make life better here, everything from transgender to the prison system to an environment to education.
Yeah, I like that, huh? So you talk about the transgenders in the prison system, but you don't want to talk about how the transgenders are impregnating women in women's prison. You going to talk about that? No.
To access to health care. It's not only critical that we do it for us, but the rest of the world's looking at us and saying,
yeah, I bet.
If we can do it, the United States, as big as we are and as consequential as we are, then we can make it happen around the world. And that's my goal. My goal is when I leave this job, people say, he kept his word to say he did what he said he would do. And each of the areas you've all raised, prison reform, transgender, making sure we eliminate assault weapons, among other things in terms of a danger, making sure the environment's clean, making sure education is affordable, and making sure that docs have all the training they need to deal with all the health issues relating to women.
Okay. Well, that was absolute nonsense. So he's talking about, when I leave this job, I want to make sure I kept my word. Yeah, well, I guess that's easy to do when all you just speak is, unintelligible word salad. None of it makes any sense, so nobody can look back and say, oh, he did what he said he was going to do, because we didn't understand what the hell he was talking about to begin with. It's all just absolute nonsense, and it's all fake. It's phony. Like, from start to finish, all of this was completely fake. Maybe the bald guy at least didn't read directly from the card the entire time. But other than that, it was all completely fake, all staged, all set up by now this or the Biden admin or Jen Psaki or Barack Obama or Jill. I don't know who's doing it, but it was all clearly fake. It was all phony. And we all know that this man would not go up and talk to 5 random voters on the street that weren't, hand-picked by, his administration, or, hand approved by somebody within the establishment that knows they're going to play ball. Absolutely. 100%. You cannot, you can't change my mind on any of that. Okay. There's only a couple seconds left. Let's see if he's going to say anything groundbreaking.
Thank you, Mr. President.
No, he's not.
And
of course not.
Thank you to everyone watching online. We hope that everything you heard tonight encourages you to make your mark this November 8th by casting your vote for the future you want to see. Have a good night.
Yeah, of course. Go cast your votes for Democrats. This is all nonsense. I can't believe I made it through the entire thing. It was incredibly painful to watch. Look at his angry face now. He doesn't know what's happening. Get me out of here. I need some pudding. I gotta go to bed. It's like 8 o'clock. It's way too late for me. This is disgusting. Now this is disgusting. All the fake news is disgusting. And that's all I have to say. Maybe you should subscribe, watch these streams, leave a comment, share with your friends, all that stuff that YouTubers typically say. I will see you next time.